What's going on, guys? This is Kaishiro. Welcome back. We are back with another OCG metagame tier list from the January 2024 OCG format week 3. So this is from the third week of our January format. This tier list was posted by ESDR's Facebook page and was made by Rai_10Y. So as usual, thanks again to them for providing quality OCG content. Coming into the midweek of our fresh format, we have exciting developments on our OCG that we're going to tackle here as we're going to address each deck in every tier on this video. So without further much ado, let's roll on. We have 5 tiers here, namely S, A, B, C, and D. So we will start first at D tier. Coming right off the bat on D tier, we have Exosister. Exosister rose into popularity once again because the meta called for these nuns to cleanse the living fury hell we are experiencing from the Fire Nation decks, being them graveyard-centric decks. So decks like Fire King, Rescue Ace, Snake Eyes, Salamangreat, Infernoid. So those fire attribute based decks on the format are running rampage on the meta right now. So EXO made a return on the meta game to halt those problematic decks by limiting their graveyard access and capitalizing on graveyard movements as well. One defining aspect of their resurgence was the banishing interruptions they have from Magnifica and Returnia that prevents the cards from being destroyed and stop them from stimulating their effects. Moving on next, we have a deck that gained traction post-Terminal World that gave them their much-needed support to empower the deck and compete on the meta. Ritual Beast never looked back from their abysmal status before, as this deck looked very competent right now, no? By setting up multiple disruptions and maximizing powerful cards like Dimension Fissure that floodgates the graveyard, of course, and Kaiser Colosseum that stuns the opponent. I think if Ritual Beast has a more easy gameplay, it would be higher on this tier list, but I have known so many people already that gave up on the deck because it's too stressful to handle. You need to memorize a lot of combos and those can be really draining on longer tournaments. So you need to have the best mental fortitude to play this deck and stamina as well to play this kind of deck on tier events. Now we move to Chimera Horus, which has been a solid tier 3 deck for almost 2 formats already. This has been a very stable deck on the meta, and this looks to be a very promising deck to pick up if you want to stay away from the banlist hits and avoid playing the higher tier meta decks. But at the same time, you can still compete and conquer the best decks using this Chimera Horus. This deck has the French keys or kind of swave that lets them adapt on each format with their recognizable strengths, coming from the immense value of Guardian Chimera has for them and their very consistent deck build that is made more consistent by the Horus engine, of course. By meshing the two decks together, it creates a very consistent deck on this Chimera Horus. This is a quality deck to use when you are looking to compete on the format right now. I highly think so because this is a very adaptive deck for 2-3 formats already. I think Chimera Horus has been a proven deck for a couple of formats. Last deck on our D tier, we have Vanquish Shoal. They have been on and off on the meta game. On some weeks, they look like a reworked full power Sky Striker, and on some days, they perform rubbish on their low points. Matter of fact, this deck heavily relies on the skill of the pilot because this deck is one of the hardest decks to play in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! You need to be perfectly precise on using your interactions, and it requires huge knowledge on your matchups, and even on the niche interactions, you need to be immaculate using this Vanquish Shoal. Vanquish Shoal has been a prominent deck since their release, but if you wish to pick this deck up, you need to be 100% prepared on every matchup, as this deck has a little to none rooms for error. So yeah, you need to be correct all the time using Vanquish Shoal. You need to use your hand trap correctly and use your interruptions using the destroy effects of Vanquish Shoal because you don't really build a huge board using Vanquish Shoal and you have little to none rooms for error if you miss timing your interruptions. And next on the C tier, we have an uncanny deck here in the form of Pure Horus. This deck saw resurgence just recently. So this deck aims a striking balance of controlled gameplay and beatdown strategy. They rely on the versatility of Horus to set up a decent board when going first and Indomitable going second as well, with high attack monsters that is always ready to OTK anytime and anywhere. Floodgates like Summon Limit and Skill Drain enhances their going first potential, and cards like Lava Golem and Spear Mode makes their going second ambiguous enough to demolish boards while being a control deck. So not many control decks has the tools of Horus Beatdown right now, because you have things like Spear Mode and Lava Golem that can easily wipe boards of your opponent. And one interesting innovation of this deck is the inclusion of Light and Darkness Dragon, or LAD, that makes the deck more menacing to pair against up and improves the board presence of the deck as well. So yeah, the LAD have a price spike on the Japanese market right now, and it's really surprising, to be honest, and I never anticipated that that card would be relevant once again using this pure Horus, control Horus beatdown strategy. Cruising our C tier, next we have Supreme King Z-Arc Magician, as this deck imposes a very powerful going first and explosive combos that aims to overwhelm their opponent by the plethora of negations and interruptions they bring on the table. On the previous meta tier list, they used to be so much higher, but them being a combo deck that loses bad against Max C, and the oblivious popularity of Anti-Spell Fragrance to Answer Fire Kings toned them down on the block. So yeah, Anti-Spell is a card that is a thorn to the path of Pendulum Magician right now, or the Supreme King Z-Arc Magician, because yeah, it is very popular, no, on the side deck of many people. So I don't really see the success of Pendulum Magician being so relevant when things like Anti-Spell could easily shut them down and win the game from that moment against them. So next we have Salamangreat. It's 2024, but we still have a 2019 World Champion deck here in the form of Salamangreat. Imagine 5 years later, they are still a respectable deck on the metagame, as this deck is one of the most versatile decks on the format right now. Very decent going first with Raging Phoenix and counter traps like Roar and Rage to empower their board setup. On top of that, they can utilize the living hell out of Kaiser Colosseum, which has been going up in prices as well right now, to close out games as soon as possible. So one Kaiser Colosseum with Raging Phoenix is pretty much game over for a lot of matchups using the Salamangreat. So you need to be wary of that as well. They also have a tremendous going second potential from the Raging Phoenix and Promethean that gives them easy access to OTK line of plays. So yeah, it can really easily OTK using the Raging Phoenix and Promethean recursion, and yeah, it is a very advantageous trait or attribute for Salamangreat, where they can close games on their own accord easily. If you're looking for a deck that is versatile, I think Salamangreat might be your cup of tea on this meta. Our last deck on C tier, we have Infernoid Sinful Spoil Snake Eyes, another Terminal World deck that rose into popularity after receiving their support from Terminal World. Infernoid looked to be the most promising deck on that set, and they have lived to their expectations from their release. To be truthfully honest, I think that Infernoid should be higher on this tier list, because this deck is very hard to deal against. They can always bait out hand traps from the Snake Eyes and Sinful Spoils line of play, as they can preserve their resources for Infernoid plays and shenanigans. And also, resolving Grass or Reasoning on this deck is like an auto-win button for them, as it gives them massive card advantages and resources to play around on the graveyard. And this deck also swarms for days. If you cannot stop them from snowballing out of control, you will be put in a very tight spot against this deck. So I really think that this should be higher on this tier list. I think they deserve that kind of respect by putting them on the B tier. So sailing towards the B tier, next we have this amazing decks that is viable, very viable, and can go toe to toe among the best decks on the format at any day of the week. We have purely a complete definition of survivability. These cute looking cats have survived harsh formats and banlist hits on their backs, as they always claw back and bounce once again on the metagame, mainly for the fact that they are pseudo control mid-range type of deck that has immense going first capacity with North's towering presence and a solid main deck space to tech in cards that will help them adapt on the current format. So things like Rumple to Fall, Summon Limit has been on and off on the main deck of Purely. Purely can really mix and match cards to cater their main deck to answer the format right now. Before, they have been playing Forbidden Droplet and Summon Limit. Now they're back to Nibiru, Whalers. So yeah, I think Purely is a very nice deck to play if you want to address most of the matchups here, because they have a lot of space on the main deck. Moving on, we have another adaptive deck on the metagame. We have the Silver Ladies Labyrinth that aims to grind their opponents on a wear in tier prolonged game state while they slowly build up their card advantages on the process. Labyrinth excels when they can hold their opponents on the early game and control the tempo of the match on their own accord. One key aspect of Labyrinth's adaptability is their ability to mix and match relevant trap cards and tech cards on their kit to cater the meta and address much more powerful decks than them. So yeah, you can put things like Dogmatic Punishment and Ice Dragon Prison and other things like Dimensional Barrier on Labyrinth. You can really utilize a lot of powerful trap cards on their kit, and at the same time, one glaring flaw of Labyrinth right now is they are very prone to Ash Blossom. One Ash Blossom can really hurt the Labyrinth from interrupting their welcome Labyrinth, and also Ghost Bell is very popular right now on the side deck that can cause major issues to the Labyrinth. So Ghost Bell can really stop the big welcome as well. So those two cards are very good against Labyrinth right now. And I think even though those cards can be really annoying to play against using this Labyrinth, I really think that this deck still has the ability to deal against the very best decks on the format right now. Next, we have Runic. This deck refuses to settle down, don't they? It's getting crazy, to be honest, that a stand deck is able to pair against much more faster decks like Snake Eyes and Fire Kings, thanks to their absurd and cancerous style of play that aims to deck out their opponent by setting up trap cards and sitting on floodgates, and keeps on drawing 2 to 3 cards every single turn. Imagine that, just to replenish their resources and gain card advantages on the process. One looming threat on Runic's stature is the box office level popularity of Cosmic Cyclone on everyone's side deck. So yeah, we already have seen how popular the Cosmic Cyclone is right now on the current meta game. So yeah, one Cosmic Cyclone can spell the end of Runic, and they're about to lose the entire game by just using Cosmic Cyclone on their Runic Fountain. So playing Runic nowadays must require balls of steel or nerves of steel, to be honest. And I played the deck as well, and I cannot manage the anxiety levels on dealing against Cosmic Cyclone right now using Runic. Next, we have Floowandereeze. The birds have once again migrated back to the metagame. The last deck on our B tier is none other than Floowandereeze, as this deck chipped back on the meta from just receiving their third copy of Magnificent Map from the previous ban list. They look to be more formidable as it elevated the ceiling of the deck, and their ability to capitalize on graveyard hate cards like Shifter and Diffusure makes them a really good deck on this format. On top of that, playing around Maxi perfectly on the OCG Maxi Warp format solidifies their position on the meta. So playing Floowandereeze gives no F against Maxi, and that's what makes them a very solid option on the OCG. Imagine nullifying 3 of the most popular cards on everyone's main deck is a very good feeling for Floowandereeze players, of course. Now next, we have Rescue Ace Horus on A tier. We have a new look Rescue Ace as the starting deck on A tier. Suffering losses from the ban list, Rescue Ace players look for ways to innovate the deck to keep its relevance on the meta. By meshing the Horus engine, they have made the deck more resilient and flexible, as the rank 8 toolbox of Horus helps the deck to play around board wipes with the Photon Lord Turbo of Horus. Of course, Photon Lord is easily accessible by Horus, which we all know that board wiping cards are detrimental against Rescue Ace. They are also more formidable when going second, as they can tutor Dingirisu and Zeus easily as their board clearing tools. On a more positive note, Rescue Ace Horus players doesn't need to invest on Snake Eyes package, which needs a bonfire, of course. A ridiculous expensive card that its playset is worth weeks of grocery already. So yeah, it's been a real issue on the Yu-Gi-Oh community right now on how expensive the bonfire is for the current format, not only in OCG but on TCG as well at most. So yeah, most players here in the OCG, like in our country, of course, cannot afford Bonfire. So yeah, I think it's the way to go for Rescue Ace right now to play Horus because it's more budget. And the next, we have Snake Eyes Sinful Spoils. Draco Malfoy from the Harry Potter series couldn't be more proud of these snakes as they slither in for the fun on the metagame. A combo deck that runs 12 to 15 hand traps is an anomaly, to be honest. They can combo off with 1 to 2 cards and establish an almost unbreakable board, and they have still enough room for hand traps to have fighting chance when losing the die roll. Imagine that. It's very problematic to see those type of decks. We have combo decks like Adventure Yang Zing Tenyi before, where they can where they can have a full blown gas to combo, but they only have at most 9 rooms for hand trap. But now Yu-Gi-Oh has been more advanced. We can see combo decks that can run 12 to 15 hand traps like a mid-range deck. So yeah, it's really hard to play against those type of decks. And also the inclusion of Forbidden Droplet on their main deck is their coup de grace for powerful boards, as they have a quite subpar going second. So most Snake Eyes text in Forbidden Droplet on the main deck so that they have chances on breaking boards using this deck. Next, we have Rescue Ace Sinful Spoils Snake Eyes. We have another Rescue Ace variant here on 8 tier. This time we have RA Sinful Spoils Snake Eyes, a deluxe and more expensive version of Rescue Ace. To be fair, Bonfire really complements the deck, as they can have access to the Snake Eyes line of play that makes the Rescue Ace more consistent and can have higher ceiling than their usual setup. The Snake Eyes package gives them easier access to SP Little Knight that can help them dodge hand traps, and that will help them to resolve their turbulence, of course, more efficiently, and they can also establish a Pulusa, which is very crucial right now on the format. The last deck on our 8 tier, we have Voiceless Voice. In Novox, we trust the usual catchphrase of Voiceless Voice players right now, as the deck could be our answered prayer to our prayers to defeat the Fire Nation decks. Voiceless Voice is a consistent and very popular mid-range deck right now that can set up a small yet efficient board with negations and interruptions like Negate, Summon, and Destroy. They can also access the Dogmatica package, which improves their going second prowess to dump things like Golden Cloud Beast and Entis, of course, when going second, as they get no drawbacks from Nadir, as they won't really rely on the extra deck summoning method. I play this deck right now, this Voiceless Voice, and it's really good, and eventually it will even be more better post LED day. So things are exciting for the Voiceless Voice right now. And finally, we zoom towards our S tier. It will be none other than Fire King, Snake Eyes, Sinful Spoils, as no other deck contests against them as the best deck on this format. Some people say that this is a mini tier 0 format due to the fact that Fire Kings are very dominant on this meta game, and I would not beg to differ to those sayings as well, because a deck that can comfortably set up 7 to 9 interruptions is really powerful, and no deck on this format has the same consistency and firepower as the Fire King, Snake Eyes, Sinful Spoils right now. The only reason that I could only think of on why Fire King, Sinful Spoils, Snake Eyes are not having 60, even 70% on meta pie charts is because of how expensive the Bonfire is for some countries in Asia, like us in the Philippines, where many people would love to play the deck, of course, but discouraged to play or buy this deck because of how pricey the Bonfire is currently. But this deck is the undisputed best deck on the format. No contest, hands down. Fire Kings is the kings of the meta right now. And if you're looking for competitive success, you should definitely pick up this deck. So yeah, that sums up our metagame tier list on the 3rd week of January. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you learned something from this video, and please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So see you on the next one. Peace.